The Seahawks have found their new franchise quarterback. His name is Sam Darnold. I prefer Seahawk Sammy Darnold. 3 years, $110 million, 55 guaranteed. Sam Darnold is Mike McDonald's quarterback. Underline it. Understand it. Geno Smith, Pete Carroll's quarterback. Geno Smith traded to the Raiders. Sam Darnold is the choice for Seattle. 3-year contract, $110 million. Sam Darnold is much younger than Geno Smith, and he's coming off a breakout season. Yeah, it took a little bit of time for Darnold to figure out the NFL, to mature. But Sam Darnold has a very key understanding of Seattle's new offense. Something that the Seahawks could never figure out with Geno Smith. What style of offense is going to work with this team and this quarterback? They could never figure it out, even dating back to the final years of Russell Wilson. What style of offense are we going to be? So with this new regime of Seattle, they're trying to figure out how they can become cohesive. Clint Kubiak enters Seattle as the offensive coordinator. Clint Kubiak being a former assistant for Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. Why is this crucial? Sam Darnold was the backup for Brock Purdy in 2023. The season that many would argue is the year that Sam Darnold quietly rejuvenated himself. Quietly became the quarterback that we saw in 2024. More calculated, more accurate, more decisive. We saw the talent of Sam Darnold shine in Minnesota. And it wasn't only because they had Justin Jefferson. I mean, that helps, right? Kevin O'Connell's a great play caller. That helps. But this is an improved player. He has matured off the field, on the field. And he really shined. His downfield passing, one of the best in football last year. His ability off play action, his ability to hit those intermediate concepts in the middle of the field that is so prominent in Kubiak's offense. That's the reason they went after this guy. Because he's got the arm talent to make every throw in the book. He's extremely dangerous throwing the ball down the field. And he's also excellent in this West Coast system in terms of his movement. His movement outside the pocket is not incredible. It's subtle, but it's still dangerous enough. He's got that little slippery nature to Sam's game that fits Kubiak's system so effectively. Now, there's no Jefferson here. They moved on from DK Metcalf. They cut Noah Fant. They cut Tyler Lockett. Sam's going to need some weapons in Seattle, and he's for sure going to need some protection. Because Seahawks fans, if there is a problem with the Seahawks and the build that they currently offer Sam Darnold, it's that they don't have great protection on the interior. Because Sam Darnold needs protection. He tends to hold the ball a little long. That's an area that he needs to improve. That's an area that we saw was very ineffective for Minnesota late in the season. Really hurt them against the Rams. Really hurt them against the Lions. The Vikings offensive line fell apart down the stretch. Darisaw got injured. They traded for Cam Robinson. It wasn't quite the same. They had some injuries up front. And Darnold, his tendency to hold the ball to find the best option to throw to, that did hurt them. He took too many sacks. So if there is a negative to his game that needs to be ironed out, that's an area that needs to be ironed out. Seattle needs to go after offensive line. And maybe that will be in the draft, right? Maybe that's where they're going to start to build this thing. But the thing is with Darnold, you're kind of in a happy medium with this player. And let me explain. Geno Smith was much older, right? I think Geno Smith is like later 30s at this point, like mid to later 30s, right? Sam Darnold is 27. He's going to be 28. In quarterback years, that is young, right? That's young for a quarterback. That's not old at all. We see these guys play, even develop. Like Geno took until his 30s to develop, to become a good player. Darnold took a little longer than some, but I feel like now is the start of his prime. Now is the start of his peak. That being said, it should be able to last for the next 7-8 years. It's not like you're paying an older quarterback in a timeline where you have to build everything quickly. You can actually take your time with Sam Darnold as your quarterback because he's not that old. He's not. So not only do you have a quarterback that can help you right now, that can win right now, but also you have a guy that you can still build with. Does that make sense? So it's the happy medium. It's a similar quarterback to Geno, I would say, in terms of talent, in terms of where they would rank among the NFL quarterbacks. I would argue Darnold was the better player last year in terms of production, right? He was in a much better situation, but he was the better player, right? 14 wins. That speaks for itself. 4,300 yards, 35 touchdowns, only 12 picks. He is a one-year wonder. You're buying a one-year wonder because he's only had one great year, 102 passer rating last year. He was top 10 in MVP votes. He finished 10th. He was a comeback player of the year candidate, third in that regard, right? So he had a huge season last year. 207 first downs, a 35-12 touchdown interception ratio, 5 game-winning drives. He was really good. You know, you look at his PFF grade, 13th in the NFL. Geno was actually 9th, believe it or not. Geno was one of those players that I felt like his stats didn't reflect his play. I would argue that Geno is probably more system-proof, and he had to deal with more negatives last year in Seattle because of the lack of protection, not the ideal offensive scheme, lack of a running game, a lot of things that went into Geno struggling in certain aspects. Right? Geno does have some issues, like his red zone play last year was atrocious. His turnovers went up. Some of his decision-making in crucial moments. But Sam Darnold, he's shown that in an ideal situation, he can be absolutely prolific, which is something that I don't think we've ever seen from Geno. So there's the kind of that upside thing, right? He was 5th in rushing grade, by the way. Very sneaky good rusher and scrambler. 11th in passing grade, 13th overall with Sam Darnold. And this is really the only season you can look at him because he's a totally new player. There's really nothing you can look at with Sam Darnold previously from his Jets days, his Panther days, honestly. Now, the question will be, and I think Darnold is one of those quarterbacks, one of many, that you need to surround him with good players around him. You can't just let him go out there and like, he's not Josh Allen. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. He's not in that category. He's a good player, though. And I would say he's in that same lane as Geno, where he's like somewhere within 12 to 18. Like the best quarterbacks in football, somewhere in that range, but he's a lot younger. So you've bought yourself a lot of time to build this thing out. And also you've got a guy now in a system that you know he operates well in. I think that's part of the Geno problem. It's like, what system is he good in? What system is he going to be the all-pro in? At least we've seen with Sam Darnold, in this specific system, he's a baller, right? And I would argue when we're comparing the games of Geno and Sam Darnold, Darnold's got a quicker release. Darnold's a little bit more agile, quicker with his feet, better to like avoid pressure in that regard. I don't think he quite has the pocket movement or the pocket ability of Geno. I think Geno's a bit tougher. Darnold has a tendency to hold the ball a little too long, but when he gets the ball out, you can see the snap. I think he's got a little bit more power on his ball. I think his arc on his deep ball is beautiful. Last year, he had one of the best deep balls in the NFL. He can make every layer of throw, whether it be underneath, over the top. He's excellent off play action, and he's also got very good movement skills in this system. So I would argue that the Seahawks look at Darnold as not only younger, but also a better player in this offense than Geno Smith, right? Maybe in another offense, Geno would be looked at better because Geno, I think, has a better understanding of situational football. I think Geno is able to deal with a worse situation more commonly. I think we've seen Geno produce more seasons of good level of play. We've seen a wider spectrum of Geno Smith. We haven't seen Sam Darnold exposed to a new situation that wasn't Minnesota, right? So one area is elements, okay? So Sam, he did play in New York, but that wasn't when he played his best. So it'll be interesting to see how Sam does play in the elements, because he played largely in a lot of domes last year in Minnesota. How will he perform in Seattle? A lot of rain. I'm from Vancouver. I understand it well. So, but when you look at all the grading things, when you look at the PFF, like Darnold was third in big time throws last year. Third in the regular season. He had 33 big time throws last year. He was fifth in passing yards. He was fifth in passing touchdowns, right? He had a 9.2 average depth of target, nearly 10, which among all starting quarterbacks was third in the NFL, only behind Jordan Love and Lamar Jackson. He had a 77% adjusted completion percentage, which was 10th in the NFL, right? So you look at all of his stats. The one area, like I said, where he is not great is pressure to sack percentage is 20%, which is 12th in the NFL, but Geno is 14th, okay? Now, the difference being time to throw. Sam Darnold at 3.07. 3 is a long time to hold the ball in the NFL. Geno was at 2.82, which is a pretty big discrepancy. Sam Darnold held the ball for the third longest in the NFL last year, longer than Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy. Now, part of that might be the system, because Purdy holding the ball a long time too, despite not having a great offensive line. But Hurts is always first in the league, 3.21, and he also has the best offensive line in the league. Lamar is second because he's Lamar. He can hold the ball so long. But when it comes to Sam Darnold, that's not really what you want to see from him. You want to see him getting rid of the ball a little bit faster. But, the allowing him to get outside the pocket, a lot of play action boot game, all that sort of stuff that he is effective in, that does allow you a little bit more time. Okay, so it's kind of pick your poison with that sort of stuff. But Darnold, I've always been a fan of his talent. I think what's always been missing in some areas is his mental game. He has brain farts. He sees ghosts. He's a guy that you need to kind of keep confident. But when he's playing at his best and when he is confident, he is deadly. He's difficult to defend because he possesses all the traits that you need to be a very good quarterback in this league. I just question Seattle from the standpoint of, was this the right move to make right now? Were they better off rebuilding? Right? Because they just traded DK Metcalf. They cut Tyler Lockett. There's so many things going on with this team where they need to improve their offensive line. They need a tight end. They need receivers. Like, that's a lot of things to put around a quarterback that you just paid $110 million. It's not like they already had all these pieces and then they paid the quarterback. Right? It's not a situation like that. So that's where I'm a little bit misled. I'm a little bit confused. That being said, you can take your time with Sam because he's only 28 and he's coming off his best NFL season at 27. And he's shown a lot of maturity and he's shown a lot of development in this system. So as long as they can keep him, I would not expect, if I was a Seahawks fan, I would not expect him to produce the way he did last year. He played in a dome. He had Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. He had Kevin O'Connell calling plays. He had one of the best tackle combos in football. He had Aaron Jones. He was in a great situation. One of the best in the NFL. Had a great defense. Now, ideally, for Mike McDonald, he can complement Sam with a great defense. Ideally, Seattle in the draft can find some offensive linemen. Ideally, Seattle might be able to sign a receiver or two to help him out. But I would expect Geno Smith level of play next year. But I would expect it from a younger player. That's what I would expect. And I think they have slightly different skill sets, but sort of similar in some ways. I think Darnold's a little bit more athletic. His arm is a little bit more flexible and versatile. He has more arm angles to his game, more release points, more things like that, right? The sexiness of Sam's game is certainly higher. So it's an interesting signing. I'm not quite sure how to feel fully until we see how Seattle supports Sam. He took 48 sacks last year. It's not a number that's ideal, right? But a lot of these stats are ridiculous for him last year. Like, he truly did play at a top 10 level last season. If he does that again, this is a home run for Seattle. Home run. And I know a lot of Seahawks fans were sick of Geno Smith. Sometimes you just need a new face. Sometimes you just need a new hope. Sometimes you need your new quarterback to just give the fan base a little bit of energy, right? Could the Seahawks have gone with one more season of Geno? The thing is, they could have. But were they going to pay him long term? No, he's too old. He doesn't fit in their plans. You know what I'm saying? So you get a draft pick from Geno. You spend the money on Sam. You didn't have to give a draft pick up for Sam. You've got a relatively similar quarterback in terms of talent, overall ability, where they would rank in the NFL. But you've got a guy that fits the offense clearly, a guy that understands the offensive coordinator, that's worked with that offensive coordinator, that has been grown in this system. And I feel like those are all positives. Those are all promising aspects of this move, right? Because you have to look at it from the lens of the long term of like Geno Smith. Yeah, him and Sam right now are about the same. And maybe Sam costs a little bit more. And Sam did have a better season last year in a much better situation. But at the same time, he's about 10 years younger, right? So that's kind of where you pick your poison. And then you've got the complement of the system. And you've got those things. So I'm intrigued to see how they support Sam. But Gronk spiked the like button. Seahawks fans, let me know in the comments what you guys think of this move. Big splash by Seattle to sign Sammy Darnold. Seahawk Sammy Darnold. Don't forget to check out the Discord as well. If you're an NFL fan and enjoy a community and NFL talk, you'll love the BLV Discord. Link in the pinned comment. Subscribe. Peace.